Today, we're excited to partner with World Wildlife Fund to talk about school food waste and community-driven grassroots initiatives to address it. WWF research estimates that national food waste in schools could amount to approximately 530,000 tons per year, that's excluding milk, equating to roughly $1.7 billion and 1.9 million metric tons of CO2 equivalent greenhouse gas emissions. But fortunately, there is a whole host of solutions that can be taken to drive reductions in school food waste. And we have got a great group of people to speak about that topic. So first off is our moderator, Alex Nichols-Vinuesa. He's the Director of Food Loss and Waste at WWF. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you. Honored to be here.
Yeah. And on our panel, we have Advika Agarwal, who is the co-founder of Compostology, as well as a student at Johns Hopkins University. We also have Shrusti Amula, who is founder of Rise and Shine Foundation and a student at Georgetown University. Tara Happy is an environmental sciences educator at Hollis Primary School in New Hampshire. And we are also welcoming Suzanne Lee, who is the faculty fellow at the Mitchell Center for Sustainability Solutions at the University of Maine, and Joe Richardson, who's the founder of Lunch Out of Landfills in Maryland. So thanks everyone for joining today. We really appreciate you being here. And Alex, I will let you take over the discussion.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I saw folks from all over the country and in the world. And as Jeff just said, and one of our close partners, Eat Real, likes to say, given that there are 100,000 schools in the National School Lunch Program, and often what is served, it's one of the largest fast food chains in the country. And while I'm wearing my hat here, working at World Wildlife Fund as our Director of Food Loss and Waste, I'm also a parent of 2 young kids. And I come from a family of teachers, and I think all of you know this too, how hard it is to get kids to eat and to solve this issue of waste in schools. It is not easy. So today we are excited to talk about on-the-ground solutions and change from some of the most amazing people I've had a chance to work with on this issue. We've been working on it since about 2018 through our Food Waste Warriors program, with the central idea that cafeterias, just like math, science, language arts, should really also be a classroom to teach kids about the food system, its impacts, and really serve as a non-controversial starting point to really reduce those impacts of the food system, but be a solution that students can help to lead on, right? And so for those of you who were at ReFED's last summit, I know that was a nice teaser there, Jeff, on where the next one will be. I'm excited. But who were at the summit in Baltimore, you're able to hear from the USDA Secretary Tom Vilsack, who really drove home this point, right? That schools can be a catalyst in helping not just students and schools themselves reduce food waste, but then to help families in their wider communities take on food loss and waste. And what we wanted to do today was, again, to give you a glimpse into what this looks like on the ground from an amazing group of students, teachers, community leaders leading this work. I honestly could not think of a better group than those we have here today on the panel to embody this vision of turning cafeterias into classrooms. So Shrusti, Advika, Tara, Suzanne, Joe, welcome, and thank you so much for being here. If we could, before we dive into some of the questions, I just would love it if all of you could take a chance, maybe just 1 minute each, to talk about the school district, the community you're coming from, and the work that you're doing. So Advika, why don't we start with you, please?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Advika. I'm the co-founder of Compostology, which I founded with my friend Angelina Shi in 2020. Our nonprofit, we have a vision of making school food waste the next frontier and opportunity for environmental action, food security, and environmental and civic education equity. So we work in Montgomery County, Maryland, and we work at the county and state level to bring different policies along with direct action programs to schools. And since then, we've also expanded to a few other states and countries, and we're slowly guiding and onboarding these other teams into our big coalition, and we welcome anyone interested to get involved.
Amazing. Shrusti?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming, and I'm really excited to be here today. I'm Shrusti. I'm the founder of Rise and Shine Foundation. We've been working since 2018, and our main goal is to reduce food waste in our community. So we're a youth-led nonprofit organization that that reduces food waste in our community through compost programs and food recovery programs. So we open our compost programs in schools across our country, but mainly we've been centered in Montgomery County, Maryland, but we're working to expand. And we also open food recovery programs in both schools and businesses. And hopefully our programs, their main aim is to fulfill the gap between climate change and food insecurity and fight both of those together. And we also encourage you guys to get involved with our organization because we're looking for more volunteers, specifically youth leaders. If not youth, we encourage you as well. So thank you so much.
I don't know what you were all doing when you were in high school, but these two, as well as Angelina and their other classmates, have just blown me away. They actually won a National Presidential Youth Environmental Award for all the work that they've done, so they're very modest. And speaking of that award, Tara Happy, I'd like to turn over to you.
Hello, my name is Tara Happy, and I am a full-time environmental science teacher at Hollis Primary School, which is a kindergarten through third grade public school in a somewhat rural part of southern New Hampshire. And thanks to a WWF grant that we received a few years ago, our school is going into our third year of our food waste diversion program in our cafeteria and our kitchen. So we rescue and donate any unopened and still good food, and we deliver it to various organizations in our surrounding community. And then we also divert all of our food waste scraps from the students during lunch. So annually, our school has been diverting nearly 10,000 pounds of food waste, and we've collected probably over 5,000 items of still good edible food, like applesauce containers and yogurt cups, cheese sticks, that sort of thing. At this point in the program, it's pretty self-sustaining, and the students are kind of just running the show. The 8-year-olds have it under control, and I'm just super excited to have been a part of the whole thing. So thank you.
Amazing. Suzanne, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm Suzanne Lee. I'm a faculty fellow at the University of Maine, the Mitchell Center for Sustainability Solutions, and I am part of a faculty and student team that specifically focuses and works with the state and all of our food system stakeholders here in Maine to develop solutions to end wasted food and food loss in our state. As part of that work, we are very excited. We've done the Maine School Cafeteria Food Waste Study. The first one was funded in 2023 by Natural Resources Council of Maine, and we had partner schools in the communities of Lisbon, Orono, Sebago, and also Buxton. So all the work I'm talking about today is really due to those schools participating in this work, where we were able to reduce food waste by on an average of 18 to 20% across the 2-month study that we did. And we are very excited that the World Wildlife Fund has seen the results that we were able to gain and has funded 4 new school districts that we'll be working with this year.
Last but not least, Joe.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. I met Advika and Shrusti when they were 7th graders at Roberto Clemente Elementary School. So you're not too young to get started. What you need are the tools and the understanding of the problem at hand. And the problem is broad. Lunch out of landfills, we are teaching waste diversion, getting organics out of the waste stream and composting where possible, decontaminating and recycling, getting liquids out of the waste stream, which is easy to do but not done, and then most importantly, recovering uneaten food. And there's enormous amounts of it. Our data has shown 8,000 to 10,000 pounds of or perfectly edible food being thrown away in a school each year. And it's not a Maryland issue, it's a national issue. So we're grateful for this opportunity to get the dialogue going.
Joe has been an incredible mentor. And I also want to point out for anyone on the call that's looking to really make the business case, right? And look at some of the savings potential of doing this work, right? Not just because we know it's the right thing to make sure we're wasting less food and to getting it to students and to people to eat, but just kind of building that case internally. Please connect with Joe because he's very good at that. I want to come back to the first question here today, which was, you all have a million things going on. Some of you were students when you started this. Tara, I can't imagine everything you have on your plate today. Why food waste, right? What was the spark when you first recognized the problem of food waste in your school? And Tara, why don't we start with you, please?
Thank you. So my first year of teaching was actually in a fourth grade classroom. And during my very first lunch duty, I noticed as the kids were cleaning up, they were just nonchalantly walking over to the trash can and throwing away perfectly good food, like unopened applesauce container. So naturally, I started running around like a crazy woman, grabbing all of the unopened food that I could in order to try to save it. And I kind of carried on that way for the most of the year. That was like my lunch duties. So, although I did get my own classroom students and a couple staff members to start to help, that was kind of as far as I could take it that year. The following year, I moved down to the primary school and became the environmental science teacher. And it was at that point that I became responsible for teaching every student in the whole building. So we immediately began a school-wide composting program. We started to rescue that uneaten food. And we compost so much that winter that I was afraid we were going to run out of space in our classroom garden. And that's when I met Paul Karpowicz, who introduced me to the general idea of food waste diversion. And that was kind of a very critical moment for everything working out the way it did. He really helped everything get going. He was amazing and managed the grant writing process. Thank you, WWF, for that. He purchased all the supplies. He set up the pickup service. He pretty much did all of the background things. And that allowed me just to really focus on teaching the students. So while he was doing all of the very necessary but very boring things, I was able to really get in there with the kids and teach them about what we were going to do and why. And I feel like it was that finding support that really made it everything possible.
Great, thanks, Tara. Suzanne, I'd love to hear from you. You work on this not just at the school level, but at the state level as well. So, I mean, what was the spark for you in getting involved with this particular issue?
Yeah, no, well, we do work at the state level, and I'd like to welcome everybody to Maine's official Food Waste Awareness Week, actually, is this week also. So, but I think Tara's example is really perfect for how the spark came to our team at the Mitchell Center, because all of our work is stakeholder driven in the state. So the solutions that we develop are not developed at the university, they're developed in the classrooms. And so in our very first working group session, we had from the Department of Education 2 nutrition directors who came with stories very similar to Tara's, that, you know, the waste that they were seeing in the cafeteria was where they were concerned, and they were hoping we would work on that. As the state of Maine continued to sort of be a leader in feeding our children, both at lunch, making free lunches available for all, and then breakfast, we had more and more nutrition directors call out to us to ask us for help with managing the nutrition side of that. You know, if the food was available, but if it's going to waste, it's not really helping. Another fortuitous thing is one of those first nutrition directors who came to our working group ended up being the head of child nutrition, Jane McLucas, for the whole state. So it became a great partnership that way, and a lot of other collaboration support with groups like Full Plates, Full Potential, Food Corps, Natural Resources Council, all of them focusing on the school food waste issue.
Thank you. All right, let's get the student perspective. Advika and Shrusti, you were 7th graders. What was the spark for you? And then Joe, please chime in here too. But what was the spark for you here, and why you really took this issue on?
Yeah, so I feel like at least as students, I mean, we were there when all the food waste was happening, and I feel like at least personally for me, it was very normalized. So I just was throwing away food. I didn't really think twice of it because like no one else around us did. We were never taught that it was bad. And then I think so yeah, that we just never realized. And then we both went to an event in our county, and then they were talking about the negative environmental impact of food waste. And we were like, what are you talking about? Like, we didn't know anything about that. And then I think that really just stood out to us. And we really carry that close to heart because it's just such a normalized thing, at least in schools, especially. So I think, at least for me personally, that was like the main spark point. And I was like, I need to bring to light this issue, because especially finding out that food waste is the 3rd largest contributor to climate change. And it just feels like such an easy thing to fix. And that's why I wanted to continue this project forward and just bring light to that for all our students.
Amazing. I want to just call attention to that point, that normalization. That is why this is such an opportunity to model a different way of thinking about food and connecting kids back to how food is produced, the impacts of that, and again, how this can also be a solution. Advika and Joe, would you like to add on to that?
Yeah, sure. So I think after we started that first program, we saw a huge impact from that. Not only was food waste directly going out of the waste stream and instead being composted, but the students were having such a big culture change in their school. we talked to the principal and the lunch staff, and they all said that the conversations actually were shifting towards environmental topics. Kids were interested in getting more involved. And it might surprise a lot of people because, kids have so much on their mind. There's so much fun in their lives, but they genuinely do care about ways that they can have an impact. And they were so, so receptive to taking what they learned in the cafeteria beyond that and talking to their teachers about, how does climate change really work? Why is food part of climate change? It doesn't make any sense. And from there, we shifted our strategy and we focused a lot on the educational aspect. We made curriculums, we worked with teachers and students, and we launched green teams, and we can go into more of that later. But for me, just seeing that individual programs can make kids care about climate change forever, for their whole lives, that's super important because those are our future voters. And those are the people who are going to decide in what direction our country goes when it comes to climate change. And everything starts with education. So that was super motivating for me.
Amazing. Joe, anything else you'd want to add on this?
Yeah, I first started noticing food waste. I run summer camps. I helped take the trash to the dumpster, and I was amazed at how much milk and uneaten food I was throwing away. I only thought, we also run before and after school programs, how bad the problem might be in schools. I was asked to serve on a sustainability commission search at looking solid waste options. And we realized one of the first things you can do is get organics out of the waste stream. I also am a firm believer that in order to fundamentally affect climate change, you have to engage young people, older people, people who are in their 30s and 40s worrying about work, don't have time to focus on this. But if we make climate solutions available in schools and empower students with meaningful, measurable solutions that are documented not just once, but every day, and they see the impact they can have and the absurdity of food waste in our school systems, that we can really affect change. But sadly, it's going to start with kids, not with adults. And that's one of the reasons why schools are so important. And they're not really teaching climate science or climate solutions. It needs to be part of the curriculum. It needs to be part of the practices.
Really well said. I mean, climate change is extremely overwhelming. This is a very tangible way that we can make an impact on this. And again, I think it's even more effective, right, than folks like Suzanne or Joe or me trying to come and lead it. When students lead it, it is so much more powerful. And so one of the things I want to talk about is you have a whole group of people here really interested in this topic, and we're thinking about how can we do this, that some of them are already doing it. Talk to us a little about how you built a coalition, right? The role of students, of teachers, of staff members, of other community groups. I would love to hear how you built that coalition as the first part of that question. And then how are you able to really measure impact? Because right at the end of the day, that's what we need to show, that this really is an effective and viable way to make progress. So maybe Suzanne, you could kick us off if you don't mind.
Sure. I mean, I think, talking about coalition building, that's really what brought us into it. All those groups that I mentioned that said, you really need to help us. I mean, we see kids every day throwing away so much the good, edible, nutritious food that we have planned for them. What can be done? So we started working with a coalition. We worked as a team with those schools that I mentioned to identify, and the nutrition directors were the key in that, but we also made sure that the principals, the facilities people were all engaged. And we had a few specific goals. We wanted to reduce food waste in the school. But since we're working with nutrition directors, we were also looking to increase the nutritional intake. And we used as a proxy the food and fruits and vegetables. So we wanted to see a reduction in the fruits and vegetables being thrown away. And then third, we knew that it was food waste education that was going to be the continuing and most important part of this work, that we educate those students. So the impacts, the way that we did that is we took daily measures for the 2 months of the study. We tracked the food waste levels. With regard to the nutrition, we did a pre and post complete food waste audit. So we tried to measure exactly fruits and vegetables. We repeated 2 menus to see before the study what was the level of fruits and vegetable waste, and then once we had done all the interventions, what was the level of fruits and vegetable waste. On the regular reduction of food waste, we saw, like I said earlier, 18 to 20% in just that time period. On the fruits and vegetables, we were even more excited because we actually saw from 25 and to a high of 60% reduction in the amount of fruits and vegetables being thrown away. And, we really attribute all that to the interventions of education, and the share baskets that we made sure all the schools were using. In terms of education, we did do that early on. We had a 10-minute assembly, and that's all it really took for kindergartners. We're working in elementary schools. It took 10 minutes in front of a kindergarten through fifth grader to explain to them about how you can help stop food waste to make this kind of a change. And the way we measured that was we had a poster contest at the end, and we asked them to share with others in this poster that they would draw what was food waste about and how could they stop it. So those were the impacts. And then we did also want to see, as a secondary impact, could this impact the family? So we did a 3-question survey that went out before the study and after the study to school families. And we simply asked them, does your family talk about food waste? Yes or no, does your family follow food waste practices, any of these things? And does your student talk about food waste practices? Pre and post, by the end of our study, we saw a 45% increase in the amount of students that were actually engaged in talking at home about the topic of food waste. So, and all of our schools were diverting food waste. So.
Thank you, Suzanne. That's phenomenal. I will give a shout out. I don't know if they're on the call today, but to Sustain Dane in Madison, Wisconsin, not just school assemblies, but even having students lead morning announcements that we all hear on the PA can be a way that you start to really educate students on this topic and making it a change. Let's hear from the Maryland team. So Vika, Trusty, Joe, could you talk about how you really built your coalition? And then Joe, I really want to hear from you too on the impact piece of it. How did you all measure the impact?
This is one of my favorite things to talk about because it's been so inspiring on a personal level for me to be part of coalition building. So back in 2020, we wanted to take that first program we started 2 years before that, and our original goal was to have that mandated in all our 211 county public schools. And I see some things in the chat about, why can't schools just mandate this? Why can't we just have this be a law and all schools have to do it? And that's exactly what we were wondering too at that time. And from there, we used the data that we had collected from that program that ran for 2 years with Shrusty. We used data about the waste collection as well as the community support that we had built. So that momentum was key. We got testimonials from our principal and students and the parents and families. We got a bunch of pictures and we built a whole presentation and a whole momentum around the program. We made it super exciting, and we pitched it to our local legislators. We reached back out to Mr. Richardson. We reached out to the compost contractors that we were working with, and we reached out to 2 state delegates. And together we hogged them. We emailed them so many times just so that we could have a meeting. It takes a lot of effort and persistence. And we also partnered with a local Board of Education member. And all together, we finally got our first meeting over the summer. And we made sure to not just have that be a one-time meeting where it's like, okay, great, you guys are students, you're doing such a good thing for the community, and we're glad to hear about it. We really made sure to ask them, what are some ways that we can take this to the next level? And we came prepared with some solutions of our own. We had the idea for a grant program in our state where the state would give funds to different schools around Maryland so that they could apply, get funds, and mimic what we were doing. We also had some other ideas for local policies about food waste reduction mandates, building a compost facility locally, and we can talk more about specifics later. But I think key to this, the bottom line is that student advocacy is very powerful, but a lot of times it's overlooked that students should be part of the solution as well. So students are great to use to talk about what problems they're seeing firsthand in their schools because they're the ones affected. It's great for showing the extent to which people care, even though they're so young, but also involving them in getting started with solutions and making sure they're the ones to advocate repeatedly. It's hard to ignore young kids pleading for a meeting with legislators because it's just inhumane to do so. So yeah, there's a lot more to say, but I'll leave it at that for now.
Shruti and Joe, could you chime in too and maybe speak to again, how did you quantify the impact of this to really get folks' attention, especially the legislators?
Yeah, so quantifying our impact was a really big part of how we built our community. I think Advika did a really good job of describing what we did on a more state level and how we were able to lobby and get a bill funded to get a bill passed and funded by our state to open compost programs in schools across Maryland. But so I'll talk a little bit more on the lower level one of community building like in our local county. So a lot of what we did, similar to what Edvika was saying, was just showing the impact of our program. So I will say that like initially starting our first program was very hard. We started it in 2018, and at that time, composting, at least in our area, it was not a big thing. A lot of people didn't know about it. A lot of people didn't know the benefits of it. So trying to get that program started at our first school was very difficult because I think inherently there's a power difference when you're talking to a principal as like a seventh grader. Like I think to some extent there is a power difference, and it was very hard trying to convince local principals to take on this program. But again, kind of what Vika was saying, it takes a lot of persistence, a lot of meetings. But eventually we were able to get one school to agree to start this program. So we ran that program from December all the way until the end of the school year. And the results of this program were shocking. It shocked us, it shocked the students, it shocked the principals, it shocked other schools across our county. And just like the sheer results of that one program that ran only for a couple months, that was enough to like launch this program and like launch the idea of this program across our county. So we were able to take that that like the impact from our first school. We were posting about it on social media. There was word of mouth from the principals, and that idea of opening a compost program in other schools spread. And at that point, not only did we have to reach out to schools trying to beg them to take on this program because it's so good for the students and for the environment, they were coming to us because they were genuinely interested in doing so. And I think that was a big part of it. And so at least what you were saying about our about the impact being quantified, a big part of that is from our haulers. When they pick up the food waste, they take it to the compost facility where they weigh the food waste every week or every month, depending on the hauler, and then they send that reports back to us. And then at least for Rise and Shine, we send this back to our principals, and then they send it out to all the student newsletters, the parent newsletters, so everyone in their local community is knowing about it. And then we post it on our social media to like extend like just show the impact that we're having. And then aside from that, a really big part of like the community building came directly from the students. So I think Advika touched on this a little bit earlier, but when we're opening the compost programs in schools, we go to the school on the first day and we talk directly with the students about it. And honestly, it's so inspiring just seeing how excited they are about it. They're like, oh, instead of just putting my food into this black trash bin, I just put it into this green bin instead, and I'm saving the world. It's as easy as that. And they take on that mindset and they're genuinely so excited about it, and they catch on so quick. And that just becomes a habit that they're going to take on throughout their entire life, which is just so inspiring. So I think the big part of it is just educating the students because they're genuinely excited. They genuinely love learning about it. And then we were able to build a community around that from the students, from the principals, from our community members.
Thank you so much. I want to just quickly add on to, I've been seeing some of the questions in the chat. You know, we are talking about composting and some of these issues, but we all know that preventing the food waste, rescuing the food waste is the obviously first priority, and all of these programs also include that. And I know we haven't talked enough about it yet, but I think one of the ways that the program too in Montgomery County, which again was with all schools, it was really focused on Title I schools to begin with, but you know, it's inclusive now of so many different schools, is tracking how many items you are able to get to the shared table, but then how many of them get used by the end of the week. It's incredible how they've come up with ways to make sure that the aftercare programs then have a chance to use those when kids are really hungry, that when someone goes to see the school nurse or the school counselor, they're able to grab a snack if they're hungry. And yes, looking at ways that you can use those for, you know, a backpack program or for a way, again, to first and foremost, get this food to kids. And to get that to students. So I just want to emphasize that. We can go into that more in the Q&A, but I want to give Tara a chance to answer as well. So Tara, please chime in.
Well, for us in our measuring, what we kind of, my goal in measuring everything that we did is that I really wanted to know the impact they were making so that I could kind of prove to our administration and our business offices that this was something that they should continue long after the grant was gone. So that's why we really started to track our food waste every day, which results in less trash to be paid to be hauled away, and really kind of added up the cost of all the food that we were saving so that the business office knew that they were going to throw away $325 worth of ketchup packets that year. So we just used a very simple Excel sheet, and it kind of evolved as the year went on, and we could track the number of items that we saved. This also kept the students super engaged because at the end of every lunch period, they just saw a few items, but they learned to acknowledge the fact that those few items continue to grow and build on each other. And then by the end of, like, say, a month, they watch their little chart go up and they've realized that they've, as a school, worked together to save 300 cheese sticks. So this was just our measuring was more to keep the program, the kids motivated, and to to kind of understand that they really were making a difference just by saving the food that they're not eating.
Fantastic. Joe, I see you're back as well. Anything you want to add here on measuring the impact and really kind of building that business case, if you will, on why this needs to be a priority?
It must be a priority, and I've lost power in my building twice, so I'm now going through my phone. But we had 4 bins: liquids, organics, trash, and recycling. And at the end of the lunch period, students would go and collect the bags, not building services, and they would weigh everything. And they would record it on a piece of copy paper. And then we uploaded it on a spreadsheet. And we were tracking this in many schools daily. And the amount of food that we were diverting it. When we started this in 2019 at Urbana Elementary School, we took 19,000 pounds of trash from January until June and reduced it to 2,900. 50% of that was organic. 15% of it was recyclable material. So it's just by source separating and giving kids choices of where to put things and then measuring how much weight that was, we came up with very compelling data. We spread that program to 14 more schools. The data was consistent. We were seeing 60 milks a day being thrown in the trash unopened from a Title I school, Lincoln Elementary School, and realized that food recovery needed to be a part of that. They were 4 blocks away from the Frederick Rescue Mission. The rescue mission immediately started doing weekly pickups. So we were looking at a problem that is glaring and staring everyone in the face. And for whatever reason, efficiencies, trying to get 600 kids fed and out the door, we've traded efficiency for common sense. And we need to model how trash can be diverted, how much of it can be diverted, and the environmental impacts. So we've been collecting data for 6 years. We're still fighting school systems to try to adopt this universally. It's every year like, we're going to do this again. Yeah, maybe. And it's like, no, it needs to be something that is institutionalized, and we haven't gotten there yet.
Thank you, Joe. I've got 2 more questions, and this chat is on fire, so I want to make sure we get to the Q&A. There's a lot of really good questions, and they're wanting more details, so I don't want to keep them back. Maybe if a few of you could just speak to, again, what I love about this group is you're not just thinking about your schools. All of you have really designed your programs in a way where it's about, how can we inspire others? How can we bring this to more schools? How can we influence policy? Would some of you, maybe Shruti and Avika, can you talk to that, right? And kind of your larger vision, how you were able to jump from just the results you had and the success you had in your schools to then influencing, again, a wider ecosystem?
Okay, I can start. So first, we really emphasize the replicability of these programs. They're super easy to launch, not so easy to fundraise for. So once we created that first program and a few more, we just made like a standardized list of materials, a standardized procedure. We trained a few other students and teachers on exactly how starting a program works. And we had that team go out into the community and train a lot more student volunteers. I'm sure that most school systems have like student service learning hours, community service hours, etc. So we did partner with our school system to make sure we would be able to give that out to students who were interested in starting their own programs and partnerships with teachers that they would identify at the schools they wanted to start programs at. So just working with our school system to get them on board and to get them to support what we're doing was really impactful. So first, it was that teaching aspect. And second was the fundraising. So the grant that we applied for from WWF lasted us beyond the 2 years because of just the nature of how many programs we're running at the same time. So the grant funding for that only just recently ran out at the end of this school year. So we were able to support around 8 to 10 schools through that. And other than that, because we were able to train so many students to start their own programs, we also trained them in grant writing and in community crowdfunding. running. So we just had a lot of smaller units of Compostology and Rise and Shine working on their own simultaneously to raise about $2,000 each year for one program. That's the cost. So yeah, as these programs were running simultaneously, we continued feeding the data to our legislators, and we continued to keep like a big variety of stakeholders up to date and involved. I think the key in that was maintaining that synergy. Even if there was no specific ask that we had at the time, we made sure to continue presenting to all of our partners, continuing to ask them for advice and ways that they think we should be scaling this up. And as we did that, our vision for scaling up continued to change. We started with the state grant program, SB 124 in Maryland, which was eventually passed, but we also explored other avenues like starting a compost facility in Montgomery County, which we're still exploring, new state bills about increasing the capacity of farms to accept food scraps so that they can compost it for us, which reduces the cost and the emissions resulting from like transporting the food waste. And so much more. So I think a big part of making a wider change is to just be open to all the different advice and solutions that people from different spheres have to offer. And Shrusti can talk more about the county level changes that also resulted from that.
Yeah, so at least for how we expanded, a big part of this was student-led. I mentioned that Rise and Shine is a youth-led nonprofit, and our main goal not only is it to reduce food waste in our community, while that is like our main mission, we also want to help students become leaders, because that will be a big part of like the change that we see when our generation grows up. So a big part of that is helping students take on leadership positions, and a lot of that is like through how we expand our compost program. So every single time or every compost program we start, we take different youth leaders with us. On the first day of school, we talk to the students directly. We walk them through this program, and we take different volunteers every time so that everyone gets this kind of opportunity and they get this kind of like exposure, I guess, to volunteer positions. Not only that, like especially like through like the way our nonprofit structured, we also have leadership positions within our nonprofit so that students can take on this leadership role and get more involved. And we have that along with our volunteers. And then also for the expansion of our programs, I think I mentioned this a bit earlier, but when we started that first program, I mentioned that I was shocked, the school was shocked, our staff was shocked, the students were shocked, everyone was shocked, because yeah, we expected this to have a big impact, but not this big of an impact. And we realized that if we're able to get this kind of big impact from one school, and this was a relatively small school that we opened it in, we like just imagine the impact that you would have when this is scaled across our county in bigger schools with more students. So that was like one of the main things that was like one of the main reasons I wanted to expand this program beyond that one school. And that came from not only that, but the excitement from other staff from other schools, the excitement from other students that were reaching out to us from other schools with the hope of starting this program. So that goes into the expansion of our compost program. And currently, we are able to, sorry, we're currently running 13 programs in our county that are all like youth-led. And yeah, so that's how we were able to expand that. And then at least oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And then that goes for our compost program. And then for our food recovery program, we have a very similar model of trying to get students more involved. But we also took that beyond and we advocated to our county legislator. And then just showing them the sheer impact of this food recovery program. Not only are we taking this food out from the trash and help save or like making this better for the environment, but we're redistributing this directly to the community where the food came from. It's meant for the students and it's going back to the students. So not only is it fighting climate change, but it's also fighting food insecurity so that these students who are food shy or food insecure, they don't have to worry about that. They can focus on the education that they're meant to receive at these schools. So yeah, we were able to just show the impact of this food recovery program. We took it up to our county and we were able to get this program to be mandated to run in every single school in our county. So soon we will have this program in all 211 schools, which is really exciting.
That is amazing. Everyone, please virtually give a round of applause to Vika and to Shrusti. I think, again, mind-blowing what they've been able to do. And I appreciate your honesty, Shrusti, because remember, it can, and we found this in our, you know, initial work as well, just starting with measuring and looking at how much waste there is, it is shocking. And that's the point. It is that sort of visceral reaction that like really catalyzes or lights the spark, that then everyone agrees we need to do something about it and look at the potential of this to really drive an impact. But you all ran with it. So I just give you so much credit for everything you've all done. You're genuinely an inspiration. All right. I want
Alex,
to get to questions. So I want to.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
I wanted to jump in here because this is not a 13 program solution. This is a national disgrace that we throw away so much food. Working with Rotary as a member of the Maryland Sustainable Rotary Action Group, I've been connected with school systems in Hawaii, Utah. I met Paul Karpowicz in Massachusetts. This is something that has to be spread nationally. I cannot go to 98,000 schools and do an assembly. What has to happen is a general education and awareness needs to be made. But I'm working with Laura Oxner from Guilford County Schools in North Carolina, John Williamson in Indiana. We're doing similar efforts. What's happening in Maine is great. We can't work in silos. We need to work synergistically. Heba Rydell was the person I met at ReFED. She's in California because where can I get carts for share tables? I said, well, you need more than a cart. You need a refrigerator to make sure that the perishable food's kept safe. Yep. So there's a lot of in the California schools, they may be scrambling how to make this mandate, to meet this mandate. We can provide solutions for them, how to divert, how to sort waste, but how to replicate this, not on a Montgomery County or a state level, but on a national level. And that's one of the things I'm excited about Worldwide Fund and ReFED in this effort.
Absolutely. Well said, Joe. And again, I appreciate your openness and willingness to really build out and collaborate with others to make this something that's going to affect the whole country. Ideally, that's where we want this to go, is the national school lunch program. I want to ask you all to just very briefly end on this question, and then I promise we'll get to Q&A. Tara, I'd like to start with you. There's a lot of people again here who are really pumped up about what you've all said. What advice would you give to other educators or to other students here looking to implement a similar program in their schools? What is looking backwards here, hindsight 2020, what is that one thing?
I think if you're up for it and you're willing to do it, just start small and start now, like tomorrow, just go for it. Walk into that cafeteria and run around and grab those unopened applesauces and then just add on as you can. Reach out for help if you need it. There's a ton of resources out there. You could find Paul. He actually has created a wonderful website called upliftnh.org. It has a lot of information for getting started, but just start small and start now. Just go for it. Just do it.
Suzanne?
Yeah, I would say our focus is, to begin with the education. So that to us, that seems like a reasonable place. We were kind of limited in our resources at the beginning. So Oakland Unified in California had some great things. World Wildlife has a bunch of resources. Now we've put our program together on our website so you can see all the interventions. You can see the materials we created and feel free to use them yourself. And I think, it starts with that education, that 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes where you give kids the basics. We believe elementary school is the perfect place to start because our programs also make sure that the students are engaged, they're taking the measures, they're using the share basket, and they can take it through the rest of the school districts and use those share baskets. The recovery, one, you've got to reduce the amount of waste, but you really, once the food is already there, teach these students to put the food that they're not eating and make it available to others. And we didn't have to worry about a redistribution. That share basket, in the course of a lunch period, the students who don't want the milk, there are equal students who are, happy to have another milk to drink. So it's as simple as that. Just put the basket out, teach kids how to use it, and you're in business.
Wonderful. Avika and Shrusti or Joe, would one of you like to also chime in with what's that one takeaway you'd give folks looking to get started?
I would say, don't be afraid of the pure time and headaches that you might go through to make change happen, because it's really worth it. Work over as many years as you can and do recruit a great team of students to help you, because I think that goes a long way. We started very small with one program, but we're now guiding people in other countries who are serving their own needs. Like, for example, we didn't talk about this at all, but it's really interesting. For example, one of our team members in Ghana, he's teaching young students in elementary school about sustainable farming, after he started having them compost their own food waste and recover the food that they're not eating and distributing it to local families. Because I think 60% of the population in his village in southern Ghana is farming population, and agriculture is huge there. So he saw a huge benefit of this program specifically, and he's in our coalition. So just keep in mind that the work you're doing locally, it could feel small at first, but it really can go far just through the power of inspiration and connectivity. Especially now that we're in this virtual world, you have access to so many partners who can help you and who you can help.
Alex, I'm going to jump in. There are barriers to this. Food service people will say, well, you know, the food might spoil and we could get sued if it spoils. You can't. There's the Emerson Good Samaritan Food Recovery Act that indemnifies people from being sued for donating food. A lot of people say, well, we can't donate federally funded food. Yes, you can. You can't resell it. So the barriers that you see in schools come from misinformation or ignorance on the part of administrators. Once you remove those barriers and provide tools that engage students, you're on the path. And if you don't have composting capability, in Utah, they're not even recycling. They need to start to do that again. But recover uneaten food. Start there. Put a mini refrigerator in a cafeteria to preserve the food, $350, and with a glass door, and let kids see, oh, there's another milk. I can take that. If you do nothing more than recover uneaten food, that's the start. We want to evolve into getting organics out of the waste stream, decontaminating recycling, do Trex plastic film recovery. All these things are part of the program. But start wherever you can. Let's start now.
Well said. There's a lot of questions here. I would love to hear it from the panel and make a quick statement about this. There's a lot of confusion. And when you talk about trying to donate food, but I don't want that to be a barrier, to Joe's point. And so I would encourage all of you to connect with us who are here on the panel. We'd all be more than happy to do so, because we can share those lessons learned from the trenches. Also, though, please work with your nutrition services department, right? And understand the local, restrictions, the local laws, understand them. But then again, that's what this is about getting us to learn from one another and show what is possible. So when it comes to the food recovery piece in particular, Joe or anyone else, would you speak to what you're able to do to get around those barriers and some of the things you think are simple, repeatable models for others who are looking to do the same in their schools to follow?
I'll say real quick, so I don't lose power again. I raised $24,000 through Rotary to pay for mini refrigerators for 67 schools in Frederick County. All I needed for the grant was a commitment from the superintendent or some administrator to say, we support this and go ahead. The county school system couldn't do it. It's like, well, why don't you go to each individual school? It's like, well, I don't have time. I'm not going to ask for $24,000 if I can't spend it. All I need is someone to say, this is something that we support. And by the way, if your school is interested in getting a refrigerator, contact Joe Richardson. So this shouldn't be something that is determined by a building service person or a principal. It needs to be eventually accepted and adopted by school systems so that we can universally purchase refrigerators on a broader scale. And from that point on, all you have to do is get the kids to put their undrunk milk or uneaten yogurt in the refrigerator so someone else can take it. It's very simple, but it's amazing the amount of resistance you get. This needs to be mandated.
And I will say that can also then inform, I'm seeing some questions in the chat, by seeing what is most often put on that share table, or if you're doing the audits and measuring what's thrown away, what's being thrown away, can then inform what is served, how it is served. That is the idea of creating that feedback loop that I know they're all doing, Joe, based on some of the work that you've all done. So I do want to, prevention is the name of the game here at the end of the day, but these efforts to set up composting and food rescue programs really can catalyze that. So Suzanne, anything else you would add then on getting, working with nutrition services, getting set up to help do more food recovery? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that because I think one way, we all have limited time, but our health department, the CDC, the people who guide what goes on in those kitchens statewide and all those cafeterias, we were able to work with them. They were concerned about the food waste issue. So they wrote a very nice sort of user-friendly guidelines as to how those share baskets should be used that we could then take. We have made it into a refrigerator cling that could be put into every school kitchen, making it clear as of the state, it's perfectly fine to take that, to collect the food from the share basket and actually make it available to students. It has to be packaged, unopened, so whatever the guidelines are. But we were able to, by working with that group, clarify for all schools in the state of Maine that this is perfectly okay. And the pandemic caused a lot of confusion over what could be shared and not shared. So I would just give that advice, if you can, those are the people that the kitchen staffs have to go to. If you can get that clarification, put it on some sort of printed thing that can go in the kitchens, it really helps, prevent that loop of all those apples and all that fruit ending up in the trash. So that's it.
I would say that's dead on, because from the pandemic, you walk into a cafeteria and it says, do not share food, right? But at the same time, we're setting up a shared table. So this can't, you do need to work with nutrition services. You do need to work with the kitchen staff, right? And it can't just be that you change the policy or you clarify. You have to go out and actively educate so that it's actually implemented. Maybe Tara, I'll come to you really quick. Any last advice, again, on kind of standing up and making sure we get more of this food to kids from a food rescue standpoint, since there is so much confusion on that issue?
Yes, for us, it was just a matter of being able to predict which non-perishable things. That was the challenge for us, because I wasn't sure what the kitchen was going to serve on what day, and I can't plan to take it to the food pantry on the specific day. So we enlisted the help of one of our school board members. She actually just volunteered, and now she's kind of on our little food waste delivery team, and she will take those items for us. I feel like it's something that if you reach out to a community, especially when it comes to repurposing this food that is perfectly still good, that it's something that everybody can get behind, and there are people that are willing to help.
All right, I know. Thank you all so much. This could have gone on for another hour. I think ReFED team, we need to do another one of these. Thank you all so much for attending. Thank you to our panelists. This was just absolutely inspirational. We'll have to follow up with a lot of these wonderful resources that they've put together that can help all of you in your efforts. But for now, I'm going to say thank you and turn it back over to Jeff.
Yes, thanks so much to all of our panelists. Thanks to you, Alex, for such a great discussion. Thanks to all of you out there for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us. We covered a ton of information today. There's still so much more to talk about. And I loved how we always talk about systems level change, but these are things that you can really do in your own community at your own school. So it's great. If you want to learn more about the topic and what our panelists are doing, you can connect with them. We're going to be sending out contact information in a follow-up email. So there was a lot of questions about that, I know, in the chat. And if you want to get in touch with ReFED, please use the contact information on the screen. Once again, make sure you're signed up for our mailing list. So we'll let you know next week where the summit is going to be. And otherwise, have a great rest of your week. Happy Climate Week, everyone. And have a great day. Bye-bye.